It's almost 2 a.m. But I just got done watching The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson in the titular role of Batman. Has an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, so like a really high score for kind of like a superhero film. I will actually say, I know this is gonna sound like I'm like kind of like very like I'm very particular about film. Like it's kind of like the same like music. Like call me a snob, call me elitist, go fuck yourself. Yes, I am. But anyway, like I will say that this probably kind of like moves my like top rankings because I think that this is probably the best Batman film that I have like thus far seen. And I'll say that like kind of like with like an asterisk in the sense that like for the longest time it had been Batman The Dark Knight, and that used to be kind of like what I would have described as kind of like the prototypical action superhero film, in the sense that it is more than just kind of like a superhero franchise. Like it is a film, it is like kind of a form of art in and of itself, contained within that like that particular iteration of the art form in the form of the movie. And like so like if you watch, like if there was no such thing as the Batman and Batman Dark Knight came out, it would be an amazing film. Like it's just like one of the best films of all time. But with that being said, it was like an amazing film because of Heath Ledger's Joker, because Heath Ledger, I think, like provided kind of like one of the best performances like of all film history. It was just like, it was an amazing film. But with that being said, when we look at it from that perspective, like then Batman just kind of like becomes kind of like I don't want to say like a stock character, but kind of like that oppositional force by which like you understand kind of like the psychology of the Joker, as opposed to Robert Pattinson's Batman, which I will say I think that like surprisingly enough, I think that Robert Pattinson has actually played like the best Batman out of all of the actors who have played Batman. So it's like Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, obviously Christian Bale, and then Ben Affleck. Yeah, no, I I know that might like shock people, but like I think that like Robert Pattinson has like shown himself like to be able to kind of like evolve like as an actor from like Harry Potter to like the Twilight to like now, which I think like his role as like Batman is just like out of this world. Like it was just the film is like very dark, and you get kind of like into like the psychology of like kind of Batman. Like, and I'm not trying to say that like someone who just is going to see like an action film isn't gonna find it like isn't gonna find it entertaining, because it is like there's lots of like action and adventure and everything that you go for when you go see like a Batman like movie or any like sort of that nature. But it also had like very deep and recurring themes throughout, like redemption, renewal, self-sacrifice, becoming oneself. It was like a very philosophical film in a sense, like under the many layers of the Hollywood explosions and fight scenes and gun shoots, which it had plenty of. Like I think like unlike a lot of like other Batman movies, which kind of like are more kind of like quest movies or kind of just like purely just like action movies where like stuff happens, this at times kind of like felt like a murder mystery. Like I'm not going to ruin the plot, like I'm not going to give any specifics, but just kind of the overall like structure of the film kind of like had like a murder mystery kind of like composition, in addition to being like Western style, like gun shootouts, like type Lone Ranger kind of like vibe, which was like definitely like amazing. And it was just, I dig it. I'll probably like say more like once I like go watch it again. But yeah, like Dark, I would I would question whether I would like take like a younger viewer to like watch the movie, because there are like parts of the movie which are which would be kind of like too sensitive to expose them, but overall it works. And it's not like a depressing movie. Like I mean, it's interesting that it's just kind of like it explores kind of like that seedy nature of like our present post-industrial capitalist existence, and kind of like the recurring themes that you see throughout many of the films of our age, like that the kind of sense of alienation, the decay of social institutions within like the world of like the democratic West and its peripheries, which obviously has like some bearing given that the current or like the post World War II global order has obviously come to an end, and so in a sense we're kind of like in that kind of like that transitional liminal moment. Like it's kind of like interesting to like to introspect about oneself in the moment of the transition from what like Foucault would probably call like an epistem, so shifting from one to another. So and you see kind of like a theme like throughout like movies like the Hunger Games and like all of kind of like the vigilante, like the Batman, the Spider-Man, like kind of like movies where it just describes kind of like a failure of modern societies to meet the expectations that its citizenry have of them. We can get into many issues of that, but it was a very interesting critique. But I just loved the way that they kind of like developed like the just the character of Batman. Like you get to know Batman on just kind of like such a deep and personal like psychological level, and you just are left like like I would say that a lot of like superhero movies tend to be very Manichean, where like good versus evil, where it is just kind of like a big divide. And even like Christian Bale's Batman, which was like described as darker, there was still kind of like that like very firm division between morality, between ethics, between right and wrong. And this film, like while not like endorsing like evil and deviousness, describes kind of just like a more complicated world, and it is very interesting to just kind of like to see how kind of like the times are kind of like inevitably like embodied and kind of manifested in kind of like the cultural art forms of our present day. But yeah, like but like definitely like would like recommend like seeing it. Like I'll probably go like watch it again, because that was like very deep. I guess like Robert Pattinson will now be future ex-husband number 6. I think I just need like a separate British list. Don't judge me. But yeah, it is like I will say like okay, so like I will say in terms of kind of like Batman villains, like I still think that the Batman the Dark Knight like takes the king, because the Joker in this movie is well not like I would like I said, like not about Christian Bale's like Batman. It's not like a stock character, like it's not just kind of like a straw man, but it is like the journey of this film is about Batman. It's literally the Batman. It's not which I found like obviously like insightful into like what Matt Reeves was trying to convey through his film. It is in that sense like this is my favorite Batman, while The Dark Knight is still my favorite Batman villain. It would have been interesting to see like if Robert Pattinson and Heath Ledger could have been in a film together. That would have been life's a bitch and then you die. Yeah, and so in a sense it was also kind of like very very existential, just kind of like Bruce Wayne's like dealing with like kind of like this paradoxical state of both being kind of like an orphan and not orphan. Like that'll make sense. Of like if you watch the movie, it's just kind of like, is he an orphan or he's not an orphan? Like privilege and and all of kind of like the ills of like our like present society. But aside from that, it was very existential in the sense that like as like I don't know if one could describe like Bruce Wayne as having kind of like survival guilt, probably like inevitably, like, and just kind of like dealing with that kind of like existential problem of like being and existing and dealing with what Albert Camus called the one question left, which is like the question of suicide, and that is like the only question that is like left. And so in this sense, in this kind of like story like of literal renewal, like renewal will be like, remember renewal, the story of renewal and redemption and like self-sacrifice, learning to become oneself in spite of the lottery of birth. And like to end with Camus, like one has to like kind of like imagine Sisyphus happy, and in that sense it is a very satisfying film because the Batman discovers himself and becomes something other than Bruce Wayne or Batman. He becomes the Batman. So highly recommend. Like yeah, like I know I like overthink everything. Tons of action, adventure, blah blah blah. Fun. Yeah, it was deep. And I wish I could have talked to that hot ginger. Like I don't. I know this is gonna sound like bad, but like there are very few. From my, there are very few male gingers that I'm attracted to. So like when you come across an attractive male ginger, you take notice. Oh God. All right. Have a good night.